hello. I have got Neil Hellegers with me today. Am I pronouncing it
That's
correctly?
right. It's a hard G. Yes.
Hellegers. Okay.
Mm.
And I've got people joining left, right, and center, so you're quite popular already.
Yeah.
This time of year, we don't always have a big audience. For anyone that's not been on one of these calls before, Neil is under strict instructions to ignore the chat box. But if you do have any questions or anything you'd like me to bring to Neil, I will read it and I'll direct it to him. And if you want to say anything to him, don't worry, he won't miss out. If there's anything in the chat, I'll send it to him after the call. It's just easier if it's like a two-person chat, but please feel free to join in. Um, the audience voice is as important as the host and the guest on these calls. I am intrigued by you,
Mm.
Neil,
Oh. Oh.
and I don't know where I got this impression,
Okay.
but the one thing I think of when I think of your name and you online and why I reached out to you, the word is gravitas.
Oh. Okay. Is that just like
I
having a
don't,
low voice? Is that um I move
it's your
quickly?
image, it's your brand.
Oh.
You, you just, you seem to have this brand of just being well respected, somebody that's taken very, very seriously. And I quite
I
like that. I quite like that.
I
I,
appreciate that
I,
very much. I mean, I won't lie. That's a nice thing to be known as, you know. I think it's always like it makes me think of like I have this is a weird anecdote to toss in, but when I was like my entire like arc has been a lot about like trying to kind of like contain a mania in order to like operate under a maybe a veneer of calm or gravitas, if you want to call it that. Like I remember when it was literally I was in the lobby outside auditioning for grad school. I went to Trinity Rep, and in order to keep myself calm, I was reading a play. I think it was Wojciech or something erudite, right? Very, very chosen, even though it's a great play, you know. I'm reading it, and then I go into my audition, and in my audition, I'm like, blah, 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 like talking a mile a minute. And one of the two people auditing me, who later on to be my teachers, Brian and Steven, were like, "You seem so calm outside." I'm like, "No, it is true that like." Um, I've worked towards, you know, and through various means and works and things about trying to, in order to communicate better, and especially for this kind of work, I'm looking at the book I was on, to keep myself focused. So I'm like really following each word as I go along. Otherwise, I'll skip through it or I'll make up my own words and get a lot of pickup. So I appreciate that the impression that results in is a form of collection and maybe therefore respecting gravitas and all those kind of things as well too. But I'm not saying it's a total veneer, you know, but I am saying it is something that I have actively worked on in terms of my tempo rhythm is the way I think of it. Like I have an internal tempo rhythm, and then I work to like have a tempo rhythm presentationally or socially or whatever you want to call it to kind of like keep connected with people in my environment and things like that.
but I'm going to stop you because I think I now know where the gravitas with that impression I got is. You're really smart. Are you really, I mean, like
I'm
more intelligent?
overeducated.
No,
Well,
but have you always been very, very quick, mentally very, very quick?
I
You,
mean, about some things, not about everything, to be
I
sure.
can
Certainly,
see your brain working when you talk, like analyzing 200 different aspects of every sentence you say. I love that. I love that.
well, I think that's
Um,
what I mean by like I guess that's what's happening underneath, but it does what it results in is me missing things as well. You see, not just, you know, I might analyze certain other things, but I might also miss other things entirely, you know.
but important things, I mean, we all miss things sometimes. Who
Yeah.
cares?
You know, I mean, it could be important things, or it's like it would like recently it's been a thing, and it's like a weird thing in like in my, you know, I've been doing this for however long, narrating that is, my like pickup rates are like creeping up all over the place, and I don't know why. That's like, I mean, we can get into it. I think that's partially because of our proofing environment that we've suddenly found ourselves in, where we're supposed to be word perfect and things like that when we're judged by machines. That's one thing. I'm not going to blame it all on that, but I think it's because like I like to sort of engage in the material in a way that is like that has like a connectivity and a meaning to it that takes me out of the text. Literally, like I find myself looking away, and I'm like, "How did you know what that sentence was, Neil?" Like I do that thing that we all do, where you read ahead a little bit, but
I
then I'm,
really like you.
but then I'm,
I really think you're fabulous.
but I'm
You
making
okay,
so many more pickups, so many more
I'm
pickups.
not
It's a
going to
little
bring this
embarrassing.
into like the are you a Gemini thing
No, I'm a
because
Taurus. I'm a Taurus. I'm a Taurus on the Aries cusp. It's very different, actually. I'm
okay,
not
okay.
because I don't. I'm not like big Taurus energy so much. I'm really more, but it makes sense on the Aries cusp. But it's like it's a Tauran in terms of like a Tauran will be like, I'm right and you're wrong, but I don't care to correct you. The Aries is I'm right and you're wrong, but Aries is like, but let's talk about this and let me convince you as to my
But
side of
you're the
things.
guy that you would meet at the party that starts talking and you can't stop listening because you've got interesting things to say. And do you know what? I hate to tell you in this homogenized world, not everyone has interesting things to say. Tell me
No.
about 10-year-old Neil.
10-year-old Neil. I was reading a lot of Stephen King at 10. That was probably a mistake.
You too. Oh,
Well, because I
okay.
remember that and that because that's third grade, right? No, no, it's not third. That's like fifth grade, right?
Yeah, I think
I'm
third
counting.
grade is eight,
Right, because I
isn't it?
remember they had all of these books that for some reason were in my elementary school library, like Carrie, like Cujo, Skeleton Crew, that anthology
Those were the
one.
days, huh? I bet they
Yeah, I
don't
know,
let
right?
them in libraries
Yeah, exactly. Like
now.
that's fine. It's good, and it's I mean it's good literature, it's complicated, I remember so I remember reading all of those back then. That I was like, yeah, I mean, unsurprising, right? It's like shocker that I was like a big inveterate reader as they say at 10, but and I don't know. What else was I doing at 10 years old?
Were you a
Uh,
happy kid? Did you get along with other kids? Did you have hobbies at home? Did you live in the moment, or were you the big dreamer?
I mean, yeah, I had close friends. I wasn't like I wouldn't say like in the sense of like a ton of friends, Those were the days also where like, yeah, at least in my town, it was still very much like you were like quote unquote popular if we were sports oriented. I was not a good athlete. I was a terrible athlete.
Where
That's
did you
something.
grow up?
Northeast New Jersey, right in the corner
Oh,
of the state.
cool.
So kind of right outside New York, and my family is out of New York. So we were going in a lot for family, for visiting family and things like that, or for whatever reasons, like literally on the New York border. So like 20 minutes from the GW Bridge. Um, but I think it's partially because like I was already tall at 10. I was growing so much that I had no sense of coordination whatsoever. And so I wasn't I played sports, but I was bad at them. I was very bad at them. And so my like other my compensation of sorts was like band and choir. I played drums. I still do, but I was playing drums at that point. And I was doing plays by 10. I was my first plays when I was like 7 or 8 years old, and by 10 I was doing again. That's elementary school and middle school plays, and kind of already on that path. Even though I think at that time, if you asked me, do you want to be a professional actor, I would be like, I wouldn't even have considered it. So. Um, I was kind of an artsy kid, I guess, in that respect. So, um, uh, yeah, music and drama and reading were like
And the sports
very
thing, I
important.
mean, it probably different for a boy, but I remember the one time I thought, right, what are these people on about? Okay, I'll give it a go. And I tried like a soccer thing. And they had to go before class. It was like 7 in the morning in the cold, and your thighs were like red from the freezing cold. You're wearing shorts. And I remember specifically looking around at these girls going, what is these people's problem?
I mean, of course, I mean that was basically my experience in terms of like, I don't know, like I guess I'll try it, and it was a lot of like, I mean, I remember like baseball being super tough in the sense that like during practice I could hit, but then when it got to a game, I just couldn't do it. And I didn't have the reflexes for infield, so I played outfield, of course. Um, and it was just I kind of trudged along. I have a memory of like, I don't know, I guess I must have been sixth grade or something like that, or so we're talking like 11 or so, the day that I was finally to my dad like, "Hey, listen, I don't want to sign up for baseball this year." And in my memory of it initially was being so disappointing. Not that my dad was like belabored it with me or anything like that, but I remember feeling like I'm letting my dad down and feeling bad about it. Like years later, when I referenced it, like, did you remember when I said to you I didn't want to sign up for baseball that year? He's like, yes, I was so relieved. because like and I get this now because I have a son, and not to say it's not about him being bad at baseball. We don't even play baseball. Baseball's not even in the picture. Um, we have sort of a non-sports household. It's an interesting American project. That it was hard for him to watch me go and be terrible and be upset about it, and I get that. And so, but he didn't want to like push that on not doing it on me as long as I said I wanted to go sign up. So,
Oh,
but
I
then when I
love
said,
your dad. That's
yeah, no,
lovely. That was really nice. Did you have
yeah,
brothers and sisters?
I have an older brother who's
Oh, you
3.
already told me no
Yeah,
sisters. Yeah.
yes, yeah, I have
Um,
3 years old,
and
3 year older brother. He's a lawyer.
oh, oh,
Yeah,
well, good in case you ever get
yeah.
in trouble.
Well, he's a real estate lawyer, so it's not exactly that kind of lawyer, but still, if I need a closing, that's very helpful
Yeah,
in New
yeah.
York State. It's if I ever own property someday, which is not in our generation's cards, but whatever, it's cool. Not in New
Okay,
York
so
City.
we're trotting along in childhood. You've been doing plays, you've been acting. Did you
Hmm.
have at some point did you find a clear sense of direction and ooh, I want to be this when I grow up?
Yes, through various sort of summer activities, but also youth group activities through high school. By the time I was going to college, I was convinced that I wanted to become a rabbi, actually.
Oh.
I'd not grown up particularly traditionally. My dad is not Jewish, even my mom is, and by Jewish law, that makes me magic Jewish womb. Boom, you're Jewish. And I was raised Jewish. I had a bar mitzvah and all of that. And then I got more involved with social action oriented youth group activities in high school. And it was kind of that. It was like, and all the rabbis that I met were these amazing worldly people. And I think I wanted to do that. I wanted to do what the rabbis who I knew worked in political offices in DC and things like that, who were doing social action and community work. But then, and so I was doing weekend programs like that at, in the city and in Cincinnati at Hebrew Union College, which is like a reform yeshiva that you call like grad school for rabbis. I was doing all of that. And then I got to college and I was like, oh, well, let me take some theater classes or let me do theater here because I'd always done theater.
The
And
singing
yeah,
rabbi.
well, I don't do musical theater anymore, but still, but so I kind of very quickly realized, oh, I see, like this sort of like progressive social action thing that I wanted to do as a rabbi wasn't a good fit for me because I didn't really want to be a pulpit rabbi. Like I didn't want to necessarily be a congregational rabbi, even though that would have been part of what I did. And all of this kind of like educational, uh, political messaging I wanted to do was I was actually better suited to do that through the vehicle of theater. Was a much better,
Right.
more comprehensive, more like all the different parts of myself that were not just this part of me that was connecting to my Judaism and things like that, sort of a wider context. It was a better fit.
Like
And along
all
with the
us
fact,
theater kids in the world, once you start, it's like you've kind of found home.
yeah, pretty much. Like I never with the community of friends in college by and large, um, but also like I'd never studied theater, so I wasn't really quite keyed into the idea of theater and performance being um, a means by which you can communicate with an audience about not just like entertainment, but that sort of like there's this like to delight and to entertain and to educate. That sort of like wider purpose of at least like the progressive theater movements that I was learning about, and the idea that that's what was behind all this. It wasn't just the razzmatazz, even though with razzmatazz can come great messaging. It's like with great power comes great responsibility. With great jazz fingers comes from relevant social themes, right? And so I made that shift in college, and I was a theater arts major and a psychology major for a while, and then the rest from there. I went to grad school and so on and so forth. So,
I
but the
love
but
it. It occurred to me, Neil, that you and I are sitting on this call, right?
hmm
And people can bemoan. I was talking about I idolize the past because you can bemoan anything you want, but you wanted to be at one point a rabbi. You grew up near New York.
hmm
You're still in America. I did burlesque and I
hmm
was a clown, and I'm in the UK,
hmm
and we both do audiobooks.
hmm
Totally different worlds,
yeah,
totally different people. And we're sitting here having a conversation with an enormous amount in common
hmm
because of our shared passion for one job for telling people stories, I would assume.
Yeah, I think that's the catch-all for all of us who do this weird
Yeah.
job. It's a weird
But it's
job, and
amazing,
it's not for
isn't it?
everyone. Yeah, it
We're
is.
all so different and we're all the same.
Well, that's like for every time when they have them, it's one of the reasons why I'm glad I live near New York, because every so often we still do have these like get-togethers, whether it's like off, casually, or whether it's APA or what have you, or APAC or something. And with all these people, it's always like this, like we can, regardless of where you came from or age or other dispositions, we can always talk about the weird ass idiosyncrasies of this weird ass job that we have,
Yeah.
and about
Yeah.
how, and in a way that, like, this is true for a lot of theater people, like people can shop talk, but it's also, but I think within that wider sphere of theater people, audiobook people are this really Byzantine concentration of people who have decided that this specifically is what they want to do,
Yeah.
and maybe along with other forms of other mediums and other kinds of theater and performance and film and TV and things
But
like that.
face
But
it, we're
yeah,
hardcore. We're like
yeah,
the ninjas of the voiceover world because the ones that don't like it don't like it.
no.
I
People who
mean,
tried, I'm like, not for me. Even
yeah.
voiceover people who like do, who are very much in the same vein. It's like it's a very particular thing that, again, not everyone has the disposition for, or the patience and things like that, and that's fine. I don't have the disposition or patience for other things, but
Yeah.
um, this is, I consider myself extremely fortunate to have this sort of necessary disposition to make this my job, because it's been life and saving in many ways. But yeah, but it is true about all of us who have found ourselves here, and it's a comforting thing.
Tell me about Dark Nights of the Soul. Tell me about a turning point in your life because we don't all have completely easy paths.
Yeah,
I mean, or we'd be boring if we did. Um, was there a time that you had to overcome something, and then how did you overcome it and come out on the other side?
I think, I mean, it sort of ties into the same sort of path where um, I was kind of like, it always seemed a bit of a lark, the idea that I could make a career just doing live theater, and specifically when that um, was doing Shakespeare, which is the most of the gigs I had coming out of grad school. Which, I mean, because I did undergrad, and then I had like a year between where I was still in Philadelphia, where I went to college, and then went to grad school in Providence. And in between years of grad school, I was starting to do Shakespeare. But it was also kind of like, it was it was a weird combination of doing something that I loved so much, but also feeling so desperate about the possibility of it, that when I got the chance to do it, even it would be almost overshadowed by this sort of desolation that I knew was waiting at the end of the gig after closing night, because there was never any guarantees about the next one coming.
Yeah.
And that's not true for everyone. I think also, I was fortunate to have some of the work that I did, but it was so hard to be like, this is great, this is amazing, but it also feels so hard. Even if I was getting cast, and that kind of, I evolved that into other work and things like that too. But I think, a lot of things that came together for me, not until I was in my early 30s, I would say, in terms of work, in terms of my life, in terms of my family, where things clarified for me, in terms of like, why did I want to do the things that I wanted to do? I know I'm not unique in this, but it's sort of like having a family and supporting a family was such a better way for me to expend or to pin my goals to than whatever kind of vague notions I was operating before then, which was either continuity of work or some vague notions of fame or something. I don't know, of like that's the vehicle, that's the means that you achieve more work, was just by working hard and being well known. I feel like this is like death of
Yeah.
a salesmanship,
And
you know.
we fight
Mm.
against structure and restriction,
Yeah,
and we hate it. But because we don't have it, it's like we gaslight ourselves.
yeah.
And not only that, but it's the only, being a narrator in particular, I don't care how much work you've had in the past. You are always a couple of books away from being unemployed,
Oh,
and you are
sure.
also always so busy that, so it's
I'm
like
also like, in every book that I do, there's parts where I'm like, oh, I'm nailing it. And there are parts where I'm like, I suck at this. I
you're
am fucking
always the
awful at
best
this.
actor on earth and the biggest ham and
Yeah.
Who did I think I
who does like
was?
what a farce, right? Like I can't believe I faked my way into this book, and it's and I think there is, I think this is something that's particular, maybe Gen X or otherwise, that we've come to understand this thing that we call imposter syndrome, right? Not that previous generations didn't feel that, but we've identified it. It's like diagnosed schizophrenics. They were always there, but now there are more of them because we have identification for
Yeah, I
what
think,
that is,
well,
right?
I think it's a human condition, but I'll tell you what, there was this thing I got an audition for something, and you had to go on a platform. This was just recently. And I didn't, the platform pissed me off. It
Hmm.
wasn't clear if I'd hit the right box. It just wasn't clear. And I was sure the person didn't get my message. So I was like, great. I missed a book I really, really wanted because of this
Yeah.
stupid bloody tech. And I'd sent the producer an email. I said, I'm sure I missed it but I just want to let you know. And 2 days later, I saw in my spam box that they hadn't got the email.
Oh.
The email didn't go through. And I was like, great, I didn't get the job. Whatever. Oh, well, stupid tech. That's the way it goes. Move on.
Hmm.
Then I got an email from the producer saying, I've got your message. You're in the thing. We'll let you know. And
Oh.
I was way more upset about that than I would have been if it had been tech. Because now, if I don't get it, it's
Right.
because they hated my guts.
I've always thought about like we are prepared for either like abject failure, but hitting close to the mark and failing is a lot worse.
Yes.
This happened more when I was doing on camera and commercial work and things like that, where you get pinned and there's a callback and
Oh,
then there's a second
yes.
callback and you're like, okay, this is so close, and you're waiting and you're like keeping your schedule open because that's how that world works, which is insane in terms of like you're not doing anything in the next 2 weeks, are you? No, of course not. Of course
Yeah,
not.
your
Um,
first pencil, you feel like such a professional
oh
actor.
yeah. It's
And
like
then you
ping, got
learn
it. Yeah.
pencil is like the closest to a nightmare you can get.
It's like they already know who they want, but they're holding on to options in case someone should
Yeah.
fall through in the 2 weeks leading up to the actual
We're
shoot.
going to
And that
suck
whole
up a
time
month
you're
of
like,
your life and
yeah,
hopes and dreams.
yeah. And then it doesn't happen. But what I was saying before about imposter syndrome is that I truly believe it is something that you can sort of weaponize. That's not exactly the right term, but what I mean by that is like I would certainly rather be in a place of like, oh man, I'm terrible, and that because that gives me so much more impetus to improve or to try to be better, than to be complacent in any way, shape, or form.
Oh no, see, I'm
eh,
the opposite. I
uh,
cannot take that. That's like when you go to the doctor and they give you like a health diagnosis and they
yeah.
say you have to take care of yourself because you're going in a bad way. And if you
Hmm.
don't fix this, you're gonna I go home and do the opposite of everything they've said. But if
No,
they
it's
tell me, "Oh, you're amazing, you're great," then I don't do well with the hard road.
See,
Something
I
about,
try to keep going to the gym for the regular sake of like my general upkeep and our voices related to our
yeah.
bodies and like, et cetera, et cetera. But I hate, and I'll do a bunch of different things at the gym, but I hate cardiovascular. I hate just doing the treadmill. So it's like the most mind-numbing thing possible. I'll go out and I will ride my bike or I will walk my dog. I'll do those things far more readily than to get myself to do like 15 minutes, or like I'll creep up from 10 and I'll like watch something on my phone that's like a guilty pleasure watch, whatever. But not until I go to my GP and like your cholesterol is a little high. It's not a problem. It's just something to be concerned about. You don't need medication, but maybe you want to think of more cardiovascular. That's like, okay, I'm doing 20 minutes, each time that I go when I manage to go. Like I need that sort of like, I need a bad pickup sheet to be like, all right, Neil, on this next book, excuse my language, you are following the language. You are following the words. You're not going to editorialize. That's what I do. I like, it's not, it's, we all do this. It's, not unique to me or anything, but I keep rearranging syntax, the things that makes that's better, or this really needs a but, not a so, I do shit like that. And so, but I've been trying to be better about it just because I hate having to take the time to do the pickup sheets. And it's weird that it's been creeping up. I don't know. I don't know if it's my eyes or if I need bigger fonts now. I think that's a big thing too. I don't ask for it,
Can
but I
can
need
I
bigger
give you
fonts.
my honest opinion?
Please.
It was how you said that about how like they're automated and now it matters more and people are noticing pickups.
Yeah.
I think that they're not. I think that you should just ignore the whole thing and not
Oh,
care.
I know that the overall principle is that and it's also like it's not like it's. I mean, it's not kept me from working.
But if you're aware of it, I
Yeah.
think it creates it. I do. I really
There's been a
believe
couple
that.
egregious situations where it's been like, "Are you serious?" And then I go through. This was in this case, it was working with an engineer at a place, and and we were both like, "I don't hear that. Do you hear that? I don't hear that." Or no, that was it was a specific circumstance where it was an egregious number of pickups, and I get it. And I had conversations with the producers about it. No one was mad at me. No one was angry at me. No one was like, "Oh, you're bad." I will say that to myself. And I know
But
that's not the
don't say
principle of
that
value.
to yourself. It
No, but
happens literally to everyone. It's,
I know this. I know it
yeah,
does, and it does, and like, and I can register that and be like, absolutely, it doesn't matter. It doesn't seem to be keeping me from work.
yeah.
And so it's fine. But what I will say about, and because I think it's a larger global thing, is that I have seen this creep, and not just me. I think this is what people I talk to about this, that the using of machines to proof us does this tacit thing where it's like honoring like machine precision rather than human language. Like human language is not precise. It's a fallacy to think that the best work I think comes with precision as the principal value. And
But
I
do they
think
not, isn't there a human, like if it goes through publishers?
ideally, and this is a lot better than it used to be. Ideally, there should be someone who goes
Yeah.
through it and then they'll pick through it. But it's still going to be like, well, this one is there. But it comes down to a lot of like, what is the value? If there is a moment where you need to re-record a sentence, there should be a threshold wherein the error makes the intrusion worthwhile. No matter how well you match, it's going to be an intrusion. You're potentially disrupting some kind of flow, maybe even unconscious to the listener in terms of their listening experience to it. Or maybe they don't care and they're driving their car and it doesn't really matter anyway. But I digress. But it's putting forth this value of well, these two words are switched. It changes not the value or tone. I mean, there could be situations where that syntactical value is important because it balances the sentence in a certain way. It's the meter of it. There's the reasons for it. But if it does not, is it worth it to include that person from the publisher or producer who is very diligently going through that will still ping because the machine will say that's incorrect. And they'll still say, well, I'll include it. Another weird thing that's been happening to me is this is what I mean. This is the blah blah blah. There's the texture in my voice sometimes that
Mhm.
the machines pick up as distortion. I've got a thing recently where it's like I'm like, no, that's just my raspy ass gravel voice. That's not it.
But
I
wait,
am
do you know
I am the
what?
distortion. I this
Do you know
is
what? Do you know what
distortion
I've
is me.
noticed about pickups? And I find it I use pickups as a tool. And because what I've learned about pickups, my biggest challenge in life and the world is that by nature, I'm easily distracted. So I have to have big, exciting things happening at all moments,
Hmm.
or my brain's going to go off to whatever big, exciting things happening outside the booth. So every pickup I get, almost all the time, if I listen back to it, I can hear my attention dropped.
Hmm.
I can hear it.
At the moment of the
Yeah.
operation or
And
whatever.
that's when I make
Hmm.
mistakes. And when I'm better and healthy and taking care of myself, I've got almost no pickups. And
Yeah.
if I let myself get
Oh, sure.
sick and don't
Oh,
sleep,
yeah. How much sleep I'm getting that week is a big
yeah.
thing. Um,
And it's an opportunity for me to go back in and smooth out the parts where I might have lost my connection to the script. So I always think of pickups as my extra little like
yes.
I'm putting the polish on top of the job.
At my most optimistic, I'm like, excellent, 150 opportunities to apply a little bit of extra polish. I think of it in the same exact way. But yeah,
150, I think yeah, again, attention span.
well, that's a random number. That's not neither a median nor a mean, but it's something that happens.
But again, every single one of us have had that book. Every single
Oh
one
yeah.
of us
Oh, for
have.
sure. I think it's not in a way. It's like it's not discussed enough. And again, I think the it ties. Like I said, it ties into changing technological conditions of what's happening with the industry and with things like that, that put out a value, even if it's not something that matters, it's a
Yeah.
value that's intruded, that it's a predicate in some ways to be like, who doesn't make mistakes? A machine, they do everything else worse, but they don't flip those two words
It's
because
horrible
they
because
can't.
I've got to say I'm of two minds, and I'm going to say this. First of all, I think it's great that we're saying on this call, for because a lot of new people watch these calls, a lot of new narrators. You're going to get the book, you guys out there. You're going to get the book with
Hmm.
thousands of pickups. You are eventually. If it doesn't come for you today, it's going to come for you sometime. And when you get it, you're not stupid. They're not going to fire you or hate you. Your work over time counts. Just do the pickups. Don't give them 100 excuses.
Yeah.
Don't make apologies for yourself and beat yourself
Takes
up.
so much more time and energy to write out some,
Yeah.
occasionally be like, no, that's an actual mistake. His name is Eugene. It's not
Yeah,
Terry.
if it's
Those
something
things
that
like, yeah,
really shouldn't be
yeah,
changed. But other than that, be the person that's like, no problem to them.
yeah.
They
That's
found mistakes and you turned them around.
I was on a panel. It was last year at the Cincinnati, the Starving Artist Retreat, and it was at a panel. It was like, "What's the one thing you wish you knew at the beginning that you wish you could say to your early narrator self now?" And it was that good, clean, responsible, respectful communication with a publisher is or producer or whoever is so much more important than your number of given pickups on any one book. I wish I could have told myself that, so I would have saved myself a lot of freak out to be like,
Yeah.
And I think there was something earlier on when I was first getting started. I was reading an interview. I must have been an AudioFile or something, because who else writes about this? And it was talking about Scott Brick. Um, and it was about who I'd already been listening to at that point. And it said something about when he was getting started. He's like, oh, yeah, I knew he was amazing because he would go through and he would go pages and pages without any stopping. Um, and I was like, oh, okay. So that like, good like note taker, good student.
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
like,
we
oh, so
all do
so
that.
so that's my ideal, and until now, like nowadays, you can see people doing live reads all over the place, Discord, TikTok, so forth. That did not exist. There was no way to do that unless you happened to go to a studio and like sit in the booth or something, or be a fly in the corner. Um, and I think that's another working value that should be communicated about, like stopping and starting it's not about like good or bad. It's not about like going for pages and pages isn't like it can happen, but it's not like it's not the requisite condition for workflow. In fact, stopping and starting a lot, as long as when I'm at home in my punch and roll, I have like my mouse pad on my right and my keyboard here with hotkeys here. Like I have a good flow with it, and it is always like either it's a mistake or it's like, nah, that could be better. No, like this book has a lot of Australian accents in it, which is not my favorite, not my best. But I'm listening to it and I'm going through it. I'm still like doing enough finished hours a day, but I'm stopping and starting a lot, and that is
Or
also okay.
or the author writes, I
Yeah.
had a book recently where it felt like she said things backwards.
Hmm.
Like in the middle of every sentence, she kind of, I can't think of an example, but it was like normal sayings and they would be like backwards. Like, but I get what you're saying, but it's not the way I speak. And I had to be
Yeah.
really paying attention because I'm automatically correcting,
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yeah.
which will be picked. I love this theme here. Let's think of other things
Well,
people that are new to the
you
industry shouldn't do.
okay. Well, let me just say real
Well,
quick.
all the things that we're told is the holy grail, and it takes us
Yes.
like 4 years to learn, oh, wait, that was bullshit.
Well, let me just say real quick before I have one for you, but let me say real quick, and you know this because you're in the UK, it's deceptive how between British syntax and American English syntax about how many words are switched around. Never
Yeah.
can never, things like that, that, and I work for a good number of British authors, God bless them. But there's a lot of that, and I would correct it or not, or things like that. But those are just things you start to learn and pick up on when you have the contrast back and forth. Here's one about working independently. About there's so much value and so much kind of like cred about working for a big five, big four, however many there are.
Yeah.
And to be sure, it's great. It's good to be able to work there. Fantastic. Wonderful. For people who have built careers even early on where they're going like from house to house, amazing, wonderful. I'm so happy for you. For myself, it took me a while to realize like no, my real kind of like so much more of my work and like interest is working independently, and that's has a lot to do with the genres that I've chosen to work in, where I've made a home, just happen to live there, so that it sort of goes hand in hand. That's not exclusive to a lot of the lit RPG that I do, right? A lot of it is independently produced. I mean, all of it basically is independently produced and then published audiobook wise, maybe by some production companies that are not me working directly with the author, even though I do a bunch of that as well too. I wish I'd heard Ted earlier on that the name of the game to filling out your schedule, unless you're a very lucky 10%, 20% of the new narrator population, is to put as much work and effort into networking with individual authors or independents
Yes.
or small presses
Yes.
as trying to get to possibly know some producer from PRH or whatever.
I'm
There's
so glad you know what, Neil, can I tell you how many people, for anyone new out there, my heart broke. I was killing myself, and I had a small group of narrator friends who started when I did, and one of them kind of started working for a publisher, and it's very exciting. That's great. But then you
Mhm,
start seeing people work for publishers. And I remember at one point, one of them said, "Oh, well, when I used to be an ACX narrator." And I remember my self-esteem went
mhm,
through the ground. I was like, what is wrong with me? Why do they hate me? Why am I? And it was just such ridiculous. It was a lot of energy wasted and a lot of unhappiness because I
yeah.
felt like I was being rejected by the real players in the industry. And so
Hmm.
then I started getting publisher jobs, and you want a certain rate, you want a certain this, so you don't ever, ever do royalty share. Then I met Hannibal, and he talked to me about royalty share, and I thought, oh, this makes sense. I could make
Hmm.
some money if I did my background, looked at the money and ahead of time, and not just royalty share, but working to get PFH from writers.
Yeah,
I started doing that and it changed everything. It's
yeah,
not, of course, I still want to work with publishers. I
sure.
wouldn't give away my indie writers for anything in the world. They,
Yeah.
they've made me happy. They've made me feel successful. They've taught me a million things. They've given me unbelievable material. I've got autonomy over my career again. I
Yeah.
curate my own portfolio, but you'll still, if you start as an audiobook narrator, who can I get introduced to?
Yeah. And it's like, again, it's I feel so, it's not that I don't like walk into the Strand, a New York City bookstore, and see books hanging out there and be like, oh, it would be nice to be doing these literary fictions as well too, these contemporary literary fiction, and not do the obscure kind of ones that I ended up doing. And there is sometimes like maybe an editorial process that is more thorough with books that are trad pubbed than otherwise, and you kind of have to deal with that. That's something that can be a frustrating kind of thing as well too. But the the better relationships I have with the authors that I've worked with are those have been who are independently produced, and so who I have a more direct, therefore, kind of interaction with, who I, either have hung out with at conventions and have become friends over the years that I've been working for them in multiple books, or we game together line, things like that,
I mean,
are
how
really
cool
valuable.
is
Yeah,
that we're like friends with really good writers?
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
how
yeah.
cool is that? Kim just said, let me interject. Kim said, can I say it out loud, Kim? She said, I am still an ACX narrator, absolutely love some of the authors I work with.
Hmm.
And I think they're missing a trick. I think you need a balanced, you need to be in charge of your work.
I
What
think
genres
that
do you
that
like?
allows you to choose. I mean, because that's how I was able to choose early, certainly, and not like very early, but like for a while into it, the kind of genres that I wanted to populate my populate my career with, my list with.
Yeah.
And that was at that time there was a lot of urban fantasy and other fantasy, sci-fi fantasy, because that was what I really wanted to do. So I would pick and choose those. But also, I think that it's a good when I do that sort of can I pick your brain thing with newer narrators, I say to them it's also just a good habit to get into in terms of exercising your craft. It's like going to the gym to check on CX, find 3 auditions. Maybe they're not all great, but the process of auditioning and trying out, maybe this is not the genre you thought you would want to work in, but that's not fiction that's interesting that strikes your fancy,
But
or so
also
you can pick and
exposing
choose and generate
yourself.
that, and that all those books that I did are then definitely formed the foundation that everything else kind of came from as well. I don't do
And
as
you
much urban fantasy
created
as I
it.
used to, but yeah,
But you
but for sure.
proactively created the foundation. And also, I think you've made me think of something that I discounted up until now. The energy of a writer that's perhaps maybe doesn't have 50, 100 books out there, that's a new writer, that energy of excitement,
Hmm.
that newbie energy. I think that you need to expose yourself to that because I think
Yeah.
that if that's where a lot of that angst comes from, you hear a lot of people, oh, even the publisher jobs are few and far behind, and AI is coming, and all the new people are taking our work. And I'm not discounting people's fears, but I think you can stay in that feeling of scarcity, and or you can adopt the energy of the new people, right?
Yeah. Well, and if you're to the extent that it's very tempting to think of the work that we do as narrators and authors, I think are in the same box of sorts where it feels very solitary. The work feels very like or you're alone, literally in a box, or you're writing somewhere. Um, Connecting with someone where they're at that kind of same practice, and really making it a collaboration. Even if you're doing the bulk of the sort of like grunt work separately, necessarily alone, means that you're connecting developmentally. And this is also because like a lot of the books that I do, since it's sci-fi and fantasy, we're usually talking about series, is right, that go on over time. And so you begin a conversation and a collaboration that happens book to book about what that's like. And if you have an open conversation about it, it can be like, oh, well, I was thinking for this book, my recent kind of thing to talk about, if I get to talk to the author about where to sort of set the fantasy world, is to eschew a default Tolkien British Isles series of accents and things like that, and have it be like, well, the Americans, they're all in the plains, so what if they all had like Midwest accents, and then all of the goblins seem to live up here, so maybe they have Boston, like to kind of do that same thing that we do with like Scots, Irish, Welsh, and Southern, but just transplant and use that same idea that we have associations with accents that say something about class or whatever, and this transplant that into this fantasy world, like where like if we're in a Southern kind of environment, the lower class, kind of like plebes, the prauls, as they say in 1984, are the hard R Southern accents, and the people who are the aristocracy are the non-rhotic, the North Carolinians, that's we use that to differentiate as the same way we would between like a South Bank, or between like some kind of lower class British accent and an RP or something like that. Um,
I love
and
that.
and so you have that conversation with the author to begin with, and then as the series goes along, because we've established those things, you can see it crop up. Like this one series that the author named Michael Head, the trilogy. It's Judge, Jury, Executioner, the 3 books, The Wandering Warrior. That's what it's called. And had this conversation early on. I'm like, I feel like these are what's happening with this people. I think we're talking this is much more rural America than it is and by the 3rd book, he was living this like hunter-gatherer tribe that lived in these trees. To be the main characters was referring to them as hillbilly ninjas, um, uh, somewhat somewhat like endearingly, and then because he wrote that conversation into it. Another series,
Yeah.
by Eric Uegland, Good Guys, Bad Guys. There's these kobolds, and I thought they sounded kind of French, and so I
But
say
you
like, what
see,
if they
you're
had French
you're
accents, and now they all
genuinely
written with
working
it,
with your writer. You're
Yeah,
like
yeah.
collaborating with your writer. I love this.
And it's not that that can't happen in trad, and it does happen. I think the percentages are of it that occurring are somewhat lower, and also because you're just kind of like another example, and this is from ACX, was a time travel series by an author named Nathan Van Coops. It was one of the very first like longer books that I did, and
Oh, I love Nathan
yeah,
Van Coops. Oh my
yeah.
God, was it time travel?
Yeah, it was in times like these was a 3 books, 4 book series, 4 book series, five. It's extended. He's got spin-off things like that too. So you know
Would you
Nathan, that's
send me the
fantastic.
link? Would you send me the link? Because I'm out
Yes.
of time travel books. I need a new one. Kim says, did you have a book that you really connected with and felt like a leveling up for you?
Um, I mean, I just mentioned about um Glynn's books. I call them the Voldrani books. So they'll take place in the world of Voldrani, even though he says Voldrani. It's a Ghostbusters reference that I um partially because it was the first lit RPG that I did that was by an American author. I'd done Russian lit RPG before then, and something about the way he writes dialogue and the internal narration of the first person just clicked with me in a way that I don't think I fully felt before. And it additionally it has led to other things in terms of the work that a lot of work that I do with lit RPG or game lit. I prefer to call it. Everyone else likes to call it lit RPG, even though I think game lit is a better term for it. Whatever. Um,
Is
uh,
it, wait, I have a question. Is there a
yeah,
tone for lit RPG? Like, is there
no,
a tone that people are waiting for or listening for? Or what
there's things
defines it?
there's as there's a there's aspects of it that have to do with a bit of listener expectation, that have to do with the degree of character voices being animation level character voices. I think that that has largely become true for a lot of sci-fi and fantasy, and not just game lit, not just lit RPG. And in general, we can see this over the course of like you look over the past 15 years of audiobooks, specific dialect in a respectful, kind of like ethnically responsible kind of way. But also just character voices has changed so much. And if you look at, and I'm not saying it's because of lit RPG, but I just did. But I think that I think everyone's kind of wised up to this idea that you should use character voice. You can't just do it. And this is not, it's nothing revolutionary. I think that's happened a lot. But there is that's one possible expectation with lit RPG. Aside from that, there are sci-fi fantasy books, and so they're no different in terms of like high fantasy books in terms of the tone. There's no like style of narrating lit RPG that's different from any other fantasy or sci-fi or frankly literary fiction or history or historical fiction. It's just it has aspects and elements to it that need to be navigated, and those come in the form of like pop-up notifications that happen to the character as they go along. Because if it's in generally speaking, lit RPG is it's a gamified world, and that can mean a million different things, but they have to be sometimes reading literal screens that pop up in front of them, or if they have stat sheets. And there are like tricks and tips that I give to that is just, I mean, but it's nothing arcane, pun intended. It's just that if you were going about your life and a screen popped up in front of you that had relevant information, and that this is within the flow of the narrative, if it has 5 things and only one of them is important, you don't read each of those 5 things like they're equally important. You're like, number 1, an axe; number 2, a bow; number 3, oh, a
Yeah.
set of daggers; number 4, a whip; number 5, a longsword. Um, you get the
I
information
like
across.
that. I like that's actually a really good tip
You
in case I
selectively
ever
read it like it's something
that.
that's physically in front of you, and you read point of view into it so that, I mean, there's nothing you shouldn't read point of view into in any narration whatsoever. So again, it's not like a new unique rule for lit RPG or game lit. It's just something that makes sense to me in terms of like when they have the stat sheet, if something happens, you're looking for the what's new about this in my stat sheet, where have I leveled up? That's the information that I'm plucking out of this, even if you have to read the whole thing. You don't have to read name, Joe, level 23, Constitution 5. If Constitution 5 is the important thing, it's like name, Joe, level 23, Constitution 5. Cool. Like that's it's, but again, it's all the same ideas about like no narration should be free of point of view, even if it's third person
I think you
or if
need
it's
an IQ
nonfiction.
test. You're
Yeah.
like a genius. I can
No,
listen to you
no,
talk. I
no.
can.
I'm saying this is all it's all straightforward. It's all like,
But it's the way it's the way you speak very fast
I
because you
do.
have a million thoughts in your mind and you can see the wheels turning. And I think you're a genius.
No,
I mean,
no.
I don't,
I'm just talking fast. I have a high tempo rhythm and a pretty fast clock.
but I
That's what
can
I.
tell, but most people can't think that fast if they tried. And I sound like I'm full of hyperbole, but I've lost all shame anymore. I call it as I see it. I think you're bloody brilliant. I
Well,
think.
thank you. I appreciate that.
And people have stopped challenging me on it anymore because if I say it, I mean it.
Okay.
But so you said something that immediately worried me though, because when you said, because I just did a book, I don't do a lot. It was like a romance, but it was like a straight, not erotic or anything, like a heartfelt, lot of things happen. And one of the characters, I did more of a character voice,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yeah.
I don't know why. It's not like me. I'm more of a
Huh.
natural voices person, but like I don't know why this stupid character just that's who
Then
she
you followed your
was.
impulse, and I think that's a wonderful thing. I think
But I might
that's
have a
ideal.
nightmare with the listeners. Thank God I don't read my reviews because I hope
I
now
think
I'm
you've been a
sitting here
romance. I
thinking, I
think it's what
hope they don't
listeners
kick the
want.
book back.
Who
Huh?
kicked the book back for being like, no, this is way too individualized and specific a
Yeah.
character point. Because that's the thing is that it's a voice or it's an accent choice or it's a pitch placement or whatever means you choose to get there or a pacing thing. But it's all like using as many possible tools to tell a story. And certainly with like a lot of accent choices that, for example, I was mentioning before about class, about using dialect choices being specific about the way five people are talking to each other. One, to differentiate between these five people, and so
Yeah.
that the listener knows who is talking. That's huge, so they don't have to rely on attributions. Two, so that the status relationship between them could be more clear in terms of, the very basic example of someone with RP assumes they have status, and someone with Cockney might not care about that person's high status, but you're already setting up a contrast and a narrative between those two voices, not to mention the other three. Um, and also, like, by relating to real world societies and cultures, we do this other thing that I keep thinking about more and more. Deanna knows about this on their podcast, about Narrators Roundtable, about how we have this really unique opportunity in this day and age with the social media arguments about politics and society and culture and things all that, where you're largely usually in a contained within the universe of like-minded people. Or if you have an argument, no one's minds are changing. With audiobook, we have a way to lean into themes and messages and what we think is important and what we think is helpful or progressive or whatever you want to call it. Um, and like pluck that aspect out of the book. Like as you're doing your prep, you're like, oh, this theme about tyranny is super important. What choices can I make throughout this book, whether it's character choices, whether it's a certain passage that you want to give that little extra something something to communicate, yeah, tyranny bad, right, to your listeners who are not necessarily the kind of people who are in your algorithm politically or socially or whatever, and have them be like, yeah, tyranny is bad, and maybe that they go about their lives and like, you know what? I didn't think about it because it's a fantasy book, but that's just like what this dude just did, and now I think that's bad. We have this really great like an opportunity to express ourselves like this is, and not to be too pedantic about it, but this is what Shakespeare did. Shakespeare would identify current contemporary themes and not talk about them using those political figures because he couldn't, because he would be, censored for it, but talk about something that happened 500 years before, like King Lear, this historical story, or Hamlet or whatever, and talk about what was happening currently through the medium of this other story, and have people relate to it, and then it puts the responsibility back on the listener or the audience to be like, right, that's the same as that shit. But it's for me, it's been a way that I prefer after having a past and of arguing with people a lot in context where no one's minds were changed, not mine, not theirs, to be like,
In
look,
politics or in art?
politics and art. I've argued politics. I've that whole thing about how the Shakespeare authorship question, how like Shakespeare didn't write this books. It was the Earl of Oxford or Francis Bacon or Lenny or whatever, Olivia Lenny. I spent so much time arguing with people over that and other things. I'm completely burnt out on it, and I don't engage like that. I hardly post politics really much anymore. Even though if you
Yeah,
ask
I
me,
don't either.
I will tell you everything I feel about it, but I'm not gonna center my posting around it.
I think my thing is my feelings are so strong that if you're a person that thinks completely the opposite of me, I really, really don't want to know. So I'm not going to bring it up and
Mhm.
we just won't mention it. And then that way I can pretend that we
And then you
agree.
can be like, let me recommend this book to you and see what about it. If they come back like, yeah, I would really like that. It really made me think that tyranny is bad. I'm like, I know, right? Tyranny is bad.
Yeah, see, but
Uh,
you and I are different because I am like, well, if you're my friend, of course we all agree.
right. Sure. Naturally. Yeah.
Although I
I
have
don't have many friends who are
suspicions
like
of
tyranny.
a few of them.
Yeah. That's true. You never know. But also and I mentioned that the sort of like practice or like that sort of thematic investment is also a great way to if the book is not amazing, if your favorite book, it's the thing that I do to be like, all right, well, what about this do I care about? And I will find that hook and I will hang my thematic hat on it and I
You've
will
made
use
me
that and
feel a
take that.
little better about it because basically I worry that I made her sound stupid. But the thing about it is she's her voice was
The
very
character
I'm
voice.
not
Yeah.
going to do it here because I'll embarrass myself,
Oh.
but she's very there's a little quaver in her voice and she's
Hmm.
extra sweet, too sweet
Yeah.
because but she cares so much about everyone. I think she really is that sweet. I hope that my love of the character comes through rather than them thinking that I'm doing a caricature. But most of
Bottom
my
line
books,
really is that it's the character, not a caricature. Like exactly what you just said.
yeah,
It's like
I
you could
hope
use the
that
most
came
ridiculous
through.
accent and make it be something that who cares? And have that human communication is like the most absurd, made up, like bizarro voice trick that you can't do for more than 20 seconds because it'll shred your voice. But as long as that creature is still a person, that
I have a
communicates something
fear of
that has
over
intentions.
anyone in
So,
theater, though. I've got a fear of overacting. And then
oh,
what they
sure.
say is, what if you had a conversation with someone right up? Well, how would you walk into a room normally? This was from all the acting classes I ever did. But Neil, the problem is, I'm from an Italian family. I walk in a room, I'm like, I'm here.
Have you seen how often I move my hands when I'm talking from maybe my Jewish heritage, about like, I mean, that's in this
Yeah.
booth, I'm like, I can't have open top drinks in my booth because I will knock them over. I will make it
Yeah.
a point to, to spill the coffee.
Exactly.
I'll have to redo the take because I knocked into the desk in front of me here. It's padded, thank goodness. But
But
when
that's
I
the
just,
thing. It doesn't help when you're not a toned down person in real life.
oh,
I
sure.
overact in real life. You
Yeah,
know.
I wonder about that because I also think like the furniture really overacting only comes where like it's not largesse, it's not bigness of the moment. As long as that largesse is connected to the stakes of it, like then it can never
Yeah.
be too big. There's only clipping. That's the only too big that we can do in the booth is when it's literally causing distortion to happen through
Yeah,
the
no.
recording and therefore it doesn't sound good.
You're right. As long as the energy is backing it up.
Yeah, it has a purpose, an objective, as they say, and
Yeah, and she had an objective.
yeah.
She
So
she
so I
she
think that's great.
was a big personality. Yeah.
And so it needed it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Neil, for this personal coaching call. And no, Kim, I promise I won't send you an email at 12 o'clock at night going, did I say too much? And like, oh my God, did I talk the whole time and not give my guest a chance to say
No,
anything?
not with me. It'd be impossible to get in as many word count as as
Well, okay,
I'm guilty of.
Neil, I'm gonna hit you. I
Okay.
cannot believe the whole hour's gone.
Oh,
This was literally the call after a bloody long deadline. This was the call I needed today. It's like a
wonderful.
sigh and a deep breath of relief. Okay, if you're going to leave the audience that's going to be watching this YouTube video in 100 years or so,
Gosh,
no pressure at all. If they take anything
optimistic.
away from this call, what piece of advice? Let's talk to those newbies. Let's talk to those people that are coming in and they're listening to every bit of advice they can get because they really, really want to do a good job. What piece of advice would you give them to make the path easier?
Trust that respect for the people will do more for you than ambition. That sounds esoteric, but I really mean that. Like, I mean that, like, treating people well and treating people with respect and an even keel, not a kind of like honorific kind of way, um, is I think the best way to navigate this industry, and I think probably like not exclusive to, um, than just trying to like knock stuff off your list. Um, and both may get you to the same place. Um, but only one of them, I think, has a higher propensity for you to maintain what's important to you, and therefore a sense of integrity, and to make sure that the people around you that are operating with that same mutual respect. Ambition does not necessarily generate um, like a response of equal ambition. That's how ambition works. But respect engenders respect. And
Yeah.
by doing that, and by that, you'll connect with people on a human level, and collaborate on a human level, and at the end of the day, be able to say to yourself, well, at least I tried to be respectful, regardless of whatever else happens.
Because it's our humanity we have in common. People know if
Yeah.
you're using them as a stepping stone.
Oh, sure. But I mean, and in terms of like it just in all the different aspects of the work, whether it's networking, whether it's the day-to-day grind of it, and it's not possible to, especially for yourself, respect yourself. I mean that as well too. Um, but the more that you can work towards, I think it puts you in a better place for this work and for yourself and for 100 years into the future. If there's assuming there's people around in 100 years.
It's about the people. It is. Yeah,
Mhm.
I love that. I
Well,
really,
it's
really
what
love that.
keeps us. It'll what's also going to keep us doing this that the machines can't do is to be a human being about it, and that as weird as idiosyncratic and bespoke as we all are, a machine can't respect. Machine has, it just is. Machine has ambition. It has a checklist of things that it accomplishes, but it doesn't have the capacity for respect, and we can. So if we stick to that, and we'll always have, it's always going to be there, but we will maintain our niche, and maintain what makes what we do with these books unique and irreplaceable.
I love that. And Kim, I agree. Kim says such great energy. Thanks so much for this conversation. And Shay says thank you.
Thank you.
And Deanna's
Thank you
been
guys.
bombing us with
Yes, I
100%
saw.
and everything you say and lots of hearts and everything.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for
Clapping
that.
hands and oh, I love that. I love that. I've got to learn how to do that. I don't know how to, can you see those things floating on the
It's
window?
react, just so the reactions on the bottom.
Yeah, I love that.
Yes. Yeah, yes.
Okay. I so need to learn how to do that. I need to learn. Thank you
The
so
rocket ship.
much. I'm so happy that we
I'm
finally
glad we
got
did
him.
this. Yes,
And I
this was a
think
bit in the
you're,
making, and I'm glad we did. And I've always seen like, oh, I want to do the coffee. I want to do the cup.
oh, you're brilliant. I think you're a bloody genius,
Oh,
actually. I think you're humble. So thank you for taking the time to join us. This has
thank you,
been
Danielle.
wonderful. And thank you to the gorgeous studio audience, mwah, as always.
Ah,
And I will let you know as soon as the link is up.
wonderful.
Bye. Bye.
Bye bye.